all the other relationships didn't work. I thought that, when I was with those guys, I was compromising to be with them. I was accommodating their behaviors. I was accommodating certain toxic traits. And I didn't realize until I got into this relationship that I didn't have to do that. Hello and welcome to episode 3, where we just talk about life experiences. So I hope that you are snuggled up and you're cozy and you're relaxed and you have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea if that's your thing. And let's just chat for a couple of moments. I want to bring another inspirational thought process to you guys. You know how when you see those commercials and it's like, do you have blah, 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 and then all the questions happen and you're like, oh gosh, I do have a headache. I do get dizzy sometimes. Sometimes I do wake up and I'd be like, I want to pass out. Those questions kind of give you indicators that you might either have a disease or you might need to go to the doctor and get checked out. So I kind of want to bring that same idea to you, except I don't want it to be a one size fits all. So again, this is from my perspective. These stories that I have, I hope to just inspire you guys from my victories and from my mistakes, mostly from my mistakes, because we learn from mistakes. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We just want to make it better. In my 34 years of living, I've learned a lot about relationships. I am such a hopeless romantic. Every person that I've ever dated, I was in love with and wanted to marry and have kids with. And of course, I'm not married to any of those people and don't have kids with any of them. So there was bound to be a little bit of heartache and heartbreak in that process. So let's talk about that for a minute, right? Again, living in New York, I had dated a couple of guys. Well, 2 guys. I dated 2 guys, and I really was just so in love with them. Both I met in church. So let's talk about that. I met those guys in church. Amazing men. We served in the ministry and we knew that we loved God and we served and, we prayed and all those things. But yet we didn't end up married, and those guys actually were a part of the dark times that I talked about in my last episode. So in the last episode, I talked about how I went through really dark times and I had friends that held me accountable. These are some of the questions and some of the ideas and thoughts that we talked about. You can have a really, really great person. They could be amazing. God have a calling for their lives. He loves them and His grace and mercy endures forever for them. Yet they may not be the most amazing person for you. They may not be meant to be in covenant with you. And these are some really tough questions that I kind of had to take myself through and ask myself and pray about, for real, because these people, these young men at the time, literally, while they weren't, they're loved by God, they weren't the best person for me and were toxic for me. So, and that it could be the same thing for you. You may have some amazing people in your life. You may have an amazing companion right now, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, and you're thinking in the back of your mind, is this really for me? So these are some ideas that I thought about, right? These are some thoughts, these are some questions that I asked myself. One of the first things was how do I feel around them? How do I feel? Do they make me feel great? And mind you, I know that every person is not going to make you feel amazing, and it's not their responsibility to, give you joy and bring you joy. You have to bring it from within yourself, but they also shouldn't drain you. Their presence should invigorate you. I can say, of course, my husband and I, we've been married for 4 years now. And from the beginning of our relationship, he showed me why. He showed me why all the other relationships didn't work. I thought that, when I was with those guys, I was compromising to be with them. I was accommodating their behaviors. I was accommodating certain toxic traits. And I didn't realize until I got into this relationship that I didn't have to do that. So in the back of my mind, I would say I always knew. You always know. Is this person really for me? Do they make me feel good? Another indicator. Is there a blessing? Do they bring a blessing with them? Prime example, I was pursuing dance. Okay? I was dancing. I had been dancing since the age of 10, been training, right? Every single time I had set out to either audition, I set out to make a quality decision towards really moving forward in my career, I was in a relationship, right? I said I was a hopeless romantic. A relationship would come. It was a distraction, and I didn't know that, but they were truly distractions. Every single time I had set out in my career, these relationships would come, godly Christian men, but they would come, and my career would end. It would change. It would switch. It would shift. And there was no fruit that was being born. Like I literally I felt like I couldn't catch a break. I could not catch a break. And I didn't understand why. It was because I was connected to a person that really honestly didn't believe in me. Now on the outside looking in, they would prosper, but for me it was almost like my flower, my light would dim. It would kind of just like wilter. And I couldn't understand why. I just couldn't get ahead. I literally would go to auditions, would make it, pass first, second rounds, but I just never had breakthrough. And part of that was, my mental ability and belief in myself. But the other part was I didn't have a partner that really supported me. It was one-sided. So do they add a blessing to your life? And you can see it. Are you losing things all of a sudden? Are people walking away from you? There's a way to see whether or not that person is really for you. And a lot of people say, well, those are haters, or, those weren't my really real friends, or those things weren't really for me. But a lot of times there are things that are for you. And if you're not attached to the correct person, or to the person that God has for you, for me, what God has for me, you will literally see things around you begin to die. It just wilts and it just goes away. And I believe that covenant relationships by far should add value to your life. Another indicator is, how do they make you feel? Do they add blessings to your life? A third thing that I just kind of would look at was like, what are some things that they say to you? Do they encourage you? Do they love on you? Or do they make you feel guilty when you express yourself? So for me as a woman, it was important for me to be able to express how I felt without being gaslighted. And I realized that was literally like a real thing, that I could never express myself in the relationship because I found myself to be unhappy with certain things. And I felt like with both relationships, I couldn't express myself. I couldn't say how I felt because I think at the end of the day, that person and we couldn't connect with each other. The ego was in the way, and we couldn't see eye to eye. And again, it's not that they were a terrible person or that I was a terrible person. It's just we weren't for each other. How do they make you feel in conversation? Do they do they honor your words? Do they honor the conversation, or do they get defensive? I know that I can have a conversation with my husband now, and while he may not like everything that we talk about, I know at the end of the day that I can talk to him, and this is how our relationship began. And that was honestly a key indicator to me, because in the past, I never had that. I never had someone that I could talk to without being gaslighted, without literally they made me feel like I was being emotionally manipulative when I was literally just expressing how I felt. And I literally felt like I could say nothing to them without them getting, defensive. So those are some questions to think about, when you're evaluating your relationship, with your significant other, with your, future companion while in courtship. And then, to that point, I wouldn't act beyond the commitment level, right? So a lot of times we as women, we feel like we can kind of low-key manipulate a guy into falling for us if we give more, if we overextend ourselves, and then we kind of get hurt when that person isn't meeting our expectation. Well, their mind isn't there, so I feel like there's there has to be a series of questions, a series of trust and levels that have to kind of be met before you open yourself up. Because a lot of times we know. I knew at the end of the day, I cannot deny that in the back of my mind, I knew like this isn't really for me. And we as women, we try to move forward, we try to nurture, we try to love, I can love and nurture them through this, but if a person isn't there, they're just not there, and they're not going to be there. And while you can, and I'm going to call it a spade, while you can manipulate them to kind of do what you want them to do in a moment and at that time, if it's not true to who they are, they're going to go back to, their nature. And then you're going to end up being abused. You're going to end up being abused because they're not properly discerning your position in their life, and you're not properly discerning their position in your life. Sometimes, we're better off. You might be better off as friends or acquaintances or associates. And so there's a lot to talk about. This is like a really loaded conversation. There's so much more that I've learned from these kinds of relationships and situations, and I kind of want to dive into it a little bit more, but we'll do that. We'll do that a little bit more. I think it's something that needs to be really discussed. Like a lot of times, yes, we get hurt, and yes, that person may have mistreated us, but sometimes we allow for certain things to happen just by not asking the proper questions. And if you're just really honest with yourself, and not just get so excited that we have someone to love, but at the same time we have to take the time to really evaluate wisdom with passion. You have to have wisdom. The passion is great, but you have to use wisdom so that you don't end up getting hurt at the end of the day, and you can kind of protect your heart until it's time to open yourself up to receive the blessing of your spouse. And I really do believe that there is someone for you, and while it may look like it's the person, one of the things that I talked about before is the counterfeit always comes. That counterfeit will present itself to you, and it may look and talk and sound like gold or like the dollar bill, but it's like that extra piece, that extra thing that just doesn't quite sit right. If you feel that's not it. No, it's not going to be perfect, but when it's the perfect situation person for you. And so I hope that this helps somebody. I hope that it at least sparks a thought, and saves some time and some energy. Even if you're about to enter into a covenant, if you feel like it's not quite right, I always encourage couples to get counseling, talk about those things. Premarital counseling, Lee and I did that. We did it with both sets of our pastors. Talk about those things, and if the time is not right, if it's not right or right, then it's not right. And I'd rather save you a lifetime of heaviness and a lifetime of just pain, and it's be free. That's all I gotta say. Be free, yeah. And that's it. So thank you guys for listening, and thank you for just coming along this journey with me. If you guys have anything that you want to talk about, please, you can leave a comment or send me an email, and I would love to just open my life and my heart up to you guys. Again, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye.